Welcome back. In our series on controversial issues related to women, we've come to our final topic of discussion, leadership. How does Islam approach the idea of female leadership in societies? If Islam supports female leadership, then why are they not allowed to lead prayer congregations? To discuss these questions and more, let's sit down with Dr. Shabir Ally. Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
So, how does the Quran explore the topic of female leadership?
The Quran actually presents the example of a female leader in history, the Queen of Sheba. Her name is not mentioned in the Quran, but we know from Islamic tradition her name is Balqis. And the Quran speaks very highly of her. She had a mighty kingdom. She comes to Solomon, King Solomon at the time, or the Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salam. And she says, in the end, I submit along with Sulaiman to the Lord of the world. So she becomes a believer. And she shows, she is shown in the Quran to be a very capable leader. When she first received Sulaiman's letter, she consulted her people, her advisors, and she says, well, I don't decide anything except in your presence and with your witness. And tell me, what is your response to this? And they say, we have power. So in other words, they're saying, let's fight it out. But she said, no, that's not a wise course of action, because the kings, when they come into a region, they just demolish everything. So, and then she looked for a way of establishing peace, which is really the Islamic way. So she proved herself to be quite a capable leader, and there's nothing in the Quran that shows that a woman cannot be a leader.
So how do you address the issue then? So if we're saying that Quran and Islam promote female leadership, how do you explain the situation where females aren't able to or are encouraged not to lead mixed congregations in prayer?
This is a matter that has been discussed by classical Muslim scholars, and in fact, the very fact that it has been discussed in classical times shows that it is actually possible for women to lead prayers even in a mixed circumstance. Mm-hmm. We have the clearest example of this, though of a limited nature, is the example of Waraka, a woman in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who asked the Prophet's, she asked the Prophet to appoint for her a mu'adhin, a caller to prayer, so that she could lead the people of her household in prayer. And the word here is dar, so it could be just the immediate house, or it could be perhaps a larger enclosure of houses together that would be considered like one large extended family. So in any case, that congregation, small though it would have been, included a male person who was the mu'adhin. A narrator of this says that I saw this mu'adhin and he was old. But this is like kind of like trying to justify the fact. Okay, he was a man, but he was old. See? But in any case, old or young, the fact is that it is possible for a woman to lead a man in prayer. This is established. Now the question is, and this is what Muslim scholars had discussed, is it possible for her to lead a larger gathering?
Yeah, like in mosques.
Like in a mosque, for example. And naturally, people gravitated to the idea that the leader would be a man, because generally they sought out the person who is most admired for his qualities, his leadership abilities, his knowledge, and he does not have any disrespectable features about him. So, if they compared men and women in their thinking, men by far, champion women. So they would prefer to follow. This is
sort of the mentality back in the day. This is the
mentality at the time. So for them, it was natural that a man would lead the prayer. But when they thought systematically about whether or not it is possible for a woman to lead the prayer, there are some who admitted, yeah, even in a mosque situation, a woman can lead the prayer. And they saw this most clearly when there is a deficiency in the community in terms of the leadership abilities of men. When it comes to the night prayer of Ramadan, the Taraweeh prayers, in which the Quran is often recited from cover to cover, all from memory. To accomplish that, it is best done by one who has memorized the entire Quran. So he reads it from memory. He doesn't hold a copy of the Quran to read from the book. But what if there is no man who has memorized the entire Quran, but you have a woman who has done it? So in that case, some of them said, well, yeah, the woman can lead the congregation. And then came the question, well, where would she stand? Because if she stands in front of the men and then she bows and prostrates, and the men will be behind her, that doesn't seem appropriate. So some said, okay, she will stand among the women towards the rear of the mosque.
And then lead the prayer.
But still lead the prayer from there. So these discussions actually took place hundreds of years ago, and scholars such as Ibn Taymiyyah, one of the classical scholars, held that a woman could actually lead prayer in a mixed congregation, at least for the Taraweeh prayer, if there is no man available who has memorized the entire Quran. So there was a preference for men, but the underlying understanding is that there is nothing that prohibits the community from appointing a woman. Of course, keeping all things in balance. You want decency in the society. You want to preserve the community from falling into error and into relationships outside of marriage and so on. But there are certain benefits that we see for in having women as leaders, especially in our present times. And if the communities are comfortable with the idea, then they can actually appoint women as leaders.
So just as we think about, this is a controversial topic, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of comments. How do you sort of address that controversy within the broader discussion of encouraging and fostering female leadership? Because you might have that opinion, but a lot of people still in our community do take issue or, sort of challenge, okay, do we really want, how do we support female leadership, but still are within the traditional confines? How do you...
There is a scholar from Jordan, Shabir Ally, who has written a book entitled Reclaiming the Mosque. Apparently the book is not available for sale yet, but it should be coming out very soon. Some chapters from the book have been released in a modified form on a website, Muslims in Calgary. So if one goes to the Muslims in Calgary website, one will find several chapters from the book there. And Shabir Ally argues using traditional evidence to show that actually women could lead the prayer, and also more broadly that women could actually be in positions of leadership in Muslim societies, when we think of positions in government and so on. And he shows that in fact there are benefits to having Muslim women who are leaders. Often women are excluded from the main mosque activity. They do not have quick and easy access to the imam in case they have a question, they want to discuss something or to correct something. So he argues for changes in the general scenario in mosques where women will still pray in the rear rows, but there will not be a barrier between men and women. The rows of men and women could actually be close to each other. And women could actually go to any part of the mosque outside of the actual congregational prayer itself. So before and after, there should be no restriction, and the women could obviously easily approach the imam and get their questions answered and so on. Thinking more broadly, when there is a position of leadership and women are automatically excluded from it, it means that the young women do not have something to aspire to when it comes to this position of leadership. So if that requires gaining the required knowledge, memorizing the Quran, for example, then women lose that impetus to memorize the Quran. Young men would be thoroughly revising the Quran every Ramadan to make sure they get it right to lead it, to lead the prayer reciting it. But so having the responsibility to lead the prayer gives them that constant impetus towards revision and memorizing in the first place. But women obviously would lose that sort of goal if they do not have that possibility open before them.
And there's a lot more to be said, but we'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.